Hello, welcome to PlayStation Access. My name's Nathan. I'm here with Rob.
Hello.
Rob, both of us have played FIFA 19.
We have.
I
won.
Oh, God, you did. This is a video. 7 changes you've been waiting for.
I have been waiting for them all.
We make this video. We make a video like this every year. We played it at E3, FIFA 19, but then there was also a kind of a day with more information that I attended recently, which is the reason for this video. So this is going to cover some of the same ground in a bit more depth. Anyway, I'm just going to crack on. I just want a quick note that because there isn't any gameplay of FIFA 19 out in the wild yet, we've used the trailers at the beginning and then we just start playing FIFA 18 just to cover our chat. The first one, Rob, is just. We have to mention the Champions League and Europa League licenses, which are now in FIFA 19.
I mean, that is very exciting. The big thing I took away from playing it at E3 was how incredibly atmospheric and authentic those Champions League games were. Just in terms of, FIFA's famous for having brilliant presentation.
Yeah.
But it really did capture the incredible level of tension in the air with the crowd, and
those evening kickoffs, man, yeah, they're really different. And I think there was FIFA could have got this license and just put it, hey, here it is with all of our other licenses, but it doesn't feel like that. It's like, oh, we've got something a bit different and we're going to do something else with it. I really like it, and as we'll see, they're making the most of it as well by really putting it into kind of every part of the game. So as we mentioned at E3, there is a new commentary team, Derek Ray and Lee Dixon, specifically for the Champions League. Loads of bespoke commentary. You can play it in kick-off, career mode. It's going to be a part of Ultimate Team. The journey is kind of based around it now as well this year. We don't know much about the journey, but that is one thing we do know. And there's a standalone mode, which is a bit like the World Cup mode. In terms of you can play the realistic version, or you can put whatever teams you want in there and then play through it with Crystal Palace, for example. Obviously, I don't have to do that because Tottenham are good for the next year or so.
Yeah.
Number 2, getting into gameplay changes. Active touch, Rob. Active touch.
This sounds like one of those things.
It is one of those things.
One of those things that has a cool name.
It does, yeah.
And has a very subtle effect on how the game plays.
I think we talk about this every year. I sympathise with a team that has to, these differences, these changes are often many years in the making, and then they're often linked to other things which are going on, but they have to give them a name that, that will sell well and that people will understand. Active touch is basically because I think they're putting a lot of work into animations in terms of physicality to making we're going to get onto one in a second. This is about first touch and things you can do. You can kind of one of the early things I really enjoyed with FIFA once it started really doing well about 10 years ago now was using the right stick to just shift the ball away from your body, and the right stick has meant many things in the years in between, but that kind of first touch decision making, obviously based on the skill of your player, is basically what active touch is about. And you're going to be able to either move the ball in the direction or feint to move the ball in one direction and then actually let the ball come across you and turn that way. You're also going to be able to flick the ball as a first touch, around the corner maybe. Some skilled players like Neymar can do very, very good feints, but it's going to give you a bit more control over that kind of first touch. And also, as part of this, my big takeaway is that when you're through on goal with any space at all, if you just flick the right stick, the player will kind of scoop the ball up, and then you can do a volley, and they're really powerful at the moment.
That's going to annoy me, I think. When you get through on goal and you don't just do a normal shot, you've got to do the flick up, volley,
just to upset the other
shot.
player, but because you can get more power into it, and I think volleys are more accurate when they're kind of controlled like that, when the ball sits up nicely. So I don't know whether that's going to be something that makes it into the final game. I was playing against Ben Wilson from Games Radar, and every time we were through on goal, was flicking up and absolutely smashing.
I'm annoyed already. I can just, but that's good, the first touch thing, because quite often in all football games and maybe even sports games in general, you get that. When you know the game well enough, you'll get that thing where the ball is coming to you, and you'll see the position of the defender, and you will know the limits of the game, and you will know you're about to lose possession. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So having something that allows you to more deliberately execute your first touch in a certain direction, I think is going to be really it's going to really shake up the gameplay. That's cool.
I think that's what they're trying to get into, and it kind of goes, like I said, sometimes these features are linked, and I do feel like this is linked with our next one, which is 50-50 battles. And this was like, you know, we talk about this again every year, classic bit of kind of FIFA presentation where they go, have a look at this from last year's game. And it's like, and this is obviously awful now. And it's like, because there's always stuff they can improve about the games. And what they showed us was, and this is probably a frustration that you've actually screamed about in the office, when the ball is like, right in the middle of two players who would in real life both go in for a physical challenge about it, but because your player kind of knows he's going to lose the ball because the game has already determined that outcome, your player just doesn't, even though you've got possession, your player doesn't really go in for it, and you're like, you just let him have the ball.
Yeah.
And now what they're trying to do is, I think they've done a lot of work in the engine in terms of making it so that the players do actually come together, and then the challenge that results from that is determined by attributes. So, how good the players are, physicality, momentum going into it, how far away they are, and all of those sorts of things.
I did get a bit of that when I was running with Gareth Bale when I was playing it at E3, and there were bits where I thought, I've lost it now. But somehow Gareth Bale just managed to steamroller through a couple of challenges just because he's massive
and I think that
fast.
I feel like that they're getting to such a kind of a granular level now on the kind of the, like sometimes for years now you might have a touch if the ball comes to you really hard and the touch isn't quite perfect, and sometimes it's an advantage and sometimes it isn't. And in these 50-50 challenges, it felt like, kind of related to the active touch as well, the ball felt much more alive. I was able to do stuff that wasn't frustrating. So like, for instance, I was playing as Real Madrid, and the ball kind of got into an awkward situation where it kind of flicked up, and I was Tony Kroos, and I turned in field, and the only way I could beat the defender to the ball was he just stuck a knee out, and neither of us got the ball. And I was kind of like, that's a new animation, and that was cool, because I wanted to try and get the ball, but isn't it weird that I didn't know, you know what I mean? I feel like FIFA is coming into this unexplored area where it used to be, everyone had perfect control and you were playing like a simulation of football, like a pretty basic one. And the rules of the game have always been like, we'll try and make it easy for you to do whatever professional footballers can do, but also it can be frustrating if you get an advantage or worse, a disadvantage for something that you didn't really have control over. But kind of real football is sort of about that. But I do wonder where it's going to take us. It's really interesting, and how much those kind of new animations, the base they wanted to make it feel like more like realistic football, like you can touch the ball with different parts of your body, and your players will fight for the ball. I wonder where it's going to go, man. It's going to be interesting. Probably before we get onto that one, let's go for the next one is going to be timed finishing, which we had a bit of a go.
Oh yes,
at E3.
I remember this.
Do you remember how it works?
I remember that you can just shoot normally, or you can like press the shoot button a second time.
Yes.
And the second press has to be in time with when your player's foot connects with the ball. And
That's
if you
right.
get it right, you'll get. It's like a risk reward system.
It's
if
a
you get it
banger.
wrong, it will spoon off into the stand. If you get it right, you'll really hit it sweetly.
Yeah. And it's not a guaranteed goal.
No.
If you hit it sweetly. And it's also not a guaranteed miss if you hit it wrong, because I've had a couple of chances where I just didn't need to use it, but I was messing around with it. But I was so dead on to score that even though I messed it up, it still went in. It's an interesting system in as much as I think Matt Pryor, I think he's the creative director now of FIFA. He was kind of saying that he uses it in situations where he knows he's having just a bit of a bang, from quite a way out, and it's like, well, I'm unlikely to score this, but if I nail it, then I've got a better chance.
And that is where you would use it in real life as well, isn't it? A speculative shot from outside the area. Sometimes players do just catch those unbelievably. I'm thinking Di Maria against France in the World Cup.
Yeah.
35 yards.
And I guess you could also, in the dynamics of FIFA, if you're pretty much bang on to score, but you want to absolutely rocket the ball into the net just to upset somebody, that's also a situation I'd use it in. And interestingly, I only realised when I played this time around, so the indication for it is, so it does work quite a lot like the low-driven shot across the goal, which has been in FIFA for a while. But the indication is if you get the second press wrong, your triangle above your kind of player control triangle flashes up red, and if you get it right, it kind of flashes up green. But if you have the trainer on, then you actually get like a little two indicators on a small bar come into the middle. And you just press it when it gets into the middle, so you can, to help people.
Like a golf shot.
Exactly, to help people learn how to do it. What I like about the system is that it's not there's a variability in when the second press has to come, depending on what kind of shot, header, because you have to do it the moment before your player hits the ball in the game according to his animation. It's going to be different every time depending on what animation it is. So it's skill based is what I like about it. We'll see more about that. The biggest thing, which I can only imagine has been an enormous amount of work and will need pretty intense kind of live operation managing, is dynamic tactics, which are, we had a quick look at these at E3, man.
I'm going to say I never used tactics in video games, in football video games, because I just don't care. I just play the game. And for a game, if a game's going to come along and make me interested in using the tactics, then I'm all for it.
Same. And what I like about it is that the range of this is a really in-depth suite of dynamic tactics which you can save in the game, and then they will change how you play the game from moment to moment, and you can switch them using the D-pad control side to side, which in previous years have been mapped to, and I think they still are if you don't set any dynamic tactics, just to going attacking or more defensive.
That's the extent of my tactical play. Am I losing? Let's go attacking.
Yeah, exactly. But the nice thing is now, just to kind of give you an idea of the kind of depth of it, you can go, for instance, defensive style, which can be balanced, drop back, pressure on heavy touch, which is where you're kind of waiting for a mistake and then you're going to dive in, press after a possession loss, which is a kind of a Barcelona of a few years ago style of, as soon as you lose the ball, you will, I think they used to do 5 or 10 seconds of sprinting to try and get the ball back, and then they would drop back into a more defensive position. Or you can just have constant pressure, which is obviously going to hammer your fatigue, but might be worth doing for a first half, try and get a lead, whatever. And you have sliders in that on the width and depth of your team, so you can kind of determine exactly what drop back means in terms of where it is on the pitch. And then in offence, you have balanced, long ball, fast build up, possession. You can change the number of players in the box on corners and free kicks, and you can give specific instructions to specific players. So you can tell your fullbacks to make overlapping runs. You can tell one of them to make overlapping runs and the other one to cut inside the defender to make an overload in the middle of the pitch. You're going to be able to tweak the position of players precisely in your squad management tactics, and you're going to be able to make it so that you can set up 4 or 5 of these and then switch them on the D-pad depending on the game situation. And I just think that's an incredibly powerful tool, and people are going to find a way to play, because you think about all the variables of what team you're playing with, especially if you're playing Ultimate Team. It's going to be like a custom team, which is basically just yours. Different players, different strengths, and the kind of, if you want to go deep into this stuff, you're going to be able to go incredibly deep. And who knows what difference. I've done custom tactics on FIFA before, and you're like, is this making a difference? But some of it does, and some of it doesn't. Certainly stuff like behaviour of fullbacks can make a huge difference.
It feels like it could be a response to the now very popular 5-3-2 formation that you see that England employed at the World Cup, where you have wing backs as your only source of width.
Yeah.
Whereas previously in football games, if your only source of width was the wing backs, there was no real tool for you to tell them to get up the pitch, and so really what that meant was you'd have no width when you're attacking.
Definitely.
Because your defenders would just be staying back all the time.
Well, having played as England in the World Cup mode of last year's game, that is something which I feel. Yeah.
So if we can have a system where you're able quite easily to, if you have a Trippier on one side and a Ashley Young on the other, get them to actually bomb up and support attacking play, then I think it's going to really, I don't want to say revolutionize the kind of formations you're able to pick, because I always pick 4-3-3 or 4-4-2 just because it's the easiest way to get a balanced attacking and defensive approach.
But it means that also if you do end up going in there and becoming comfortable with the formation system, then you're going to maybe have a plan where you make a particular substitute once you get a certain amount ahead, depending on who you're playing, or you're going to switch formation. It's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how powerful that system is. Couple of last little bits and pieces, small things, but which I like and have actually been waiting for. This one's just about player icons. Number 6. Two little things I've lumped in here. There's an empty triangle above the next player that will be selected when you change player, which helps me. I think that it has been done in PES, but it helps me enormously in the direction that you're pressing when you start to control a new defender can be make or break as sometimes as to whether you actually make the tackle.
Yeah.
So that one's quite important. And also on the little mini map, the kind of small pitch showing the kind of whole area of the pitch, instead of everyone being the same shape, opponents are now triangles and your team are circles rather than just being colour difference. That makes
sense, doesn't it?
That makes a big difference. And number 7, which I like a lot, when you're doing a goal kick, especially like this is good if you're playing on the same screen, when you start to move it around to the left or the right to aim your kick, the camera doesn't move. So the other person can't just go and move his players over into that direction.
That is good as well.
Those are the small things which I really like finding out about the next year of every iterative sports game. Right, thank you for being with me, Rob. Thank you guys out there for listening. 7 changes you've been waiting for coming to FIFA 19. Let us know in the comments if they address your concerns. I'm particularly interested to know what you think about the custom tactics system. Do let me know about that. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Please stay tuned to PlayStation Access. We've got loads more coming up.